After weeks of standoffs for the House Speaker seat, the vacancy was finally filled by Congressman Mike Johnson on Wednesday. It's a big profile boost for the representative from Louisiana, but there are concerns about his ability to fundraise compared to the former House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy. He's also facing some scrutiny for his hardline stances on abortion and his election 2020 denialism. For more on this week's political news, we're joined by Leslie Sanchez and Joel Payne. Leslie is a CBS News political analyst and Republican strategist. Joel is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. Thank you both for joining us. Joel, let me begin with you. One of the founding principles of this country and the way that the framers intended it is the ability to compromise with your opposition, with the opposition. So the question is framed here as, will Democrats be able to work with Johnson? But more importantly, I think, what is the sense from the Democrats that Johnson is prepared to work with them?
Well, Vlad, I thought the question you were teeing up is whether Johnson could get the Republicans to work with each other about that. I think President Biden has been pretty clear that he's willing to work with anybody, particularly towards the best interest of the American people. There's some really serious, important business that's coming up in the next few weeks, whether it's securing the funding for Ukraine, for Israel, securing the funding necessary to keep the government open. There's some serious business that's obviously been delayed by this speaker fight. But I think the president and I think Democrats have been pretty clear. They're willing to work with who Republicans put forward. The real question is, are Republicans ready to honor the commitments that they've already made and also to approach those types of relationships and conversations in good faith?
Well, we saw for the first time Republicans all getting on board with a speaker. That hadn't happened in the last 3 weeks for sure, and certainly not even preceding that with Kevin McCarthy. So, Leslie, Johnson in ordinary times wouldn't be the person that you would expect to see in the speaker's role. Among other things, he has some pretty extreme opinions regarding gay marriage and abortion rights. Might this be alienating for some of the members of the GOP who are in more purple districts?
If new Speaker Johnson was going to make this an effort to move his own personal agenda forward, then absolutely. But I think the Speaker has basically said that he supports the conference as a whole and not moving his personal agenda, and that's really going to be the one factor. Is he going to be able to move on some of these strong financial responsibilities, not only funding the federal government, funding Ukraine, funding Israel? He's going to get the conference together on those. He's going to be tested with respect to that before people start looking at his personal proclivities, how he's, been a representative in his own district. And this anonymity he's had, not being known by many, even within his own conference, could be an advantage. Because if you think about the conversations we had last week, it was somebody who could really get the trains moving, somebody who can really get this part of the job done that isn't so politically known and charged that it has such a strong reaction within the conference. So it's yet to be seen if he's going to be effective, but those are going to be the metrics he's measured by in this first couple of weeks.
And beyond even effective, there's questions about whether he's going to last, given what we have seen. Real quick, Leslie, right. Joel, do you think that he will serve the entirety of his term?
Just say I wouldn't place any bets on any Republican speakers in this Congress. Really quickly, Lana, he's going to be used against Republicans this cycle. Those 18 in Biden districts, people like Mike Lawler, Don Bacon, who are moderate, so-called moderate Republicans, he's going to be used. He's already starting to be used against them because of those extreme positions. And I think you're going to continue to see that.
And Leslie, do you think he's going to last?
I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you that. I will tell you, I agree with Joel in terms of the speaker being used. Nancy Pelosi was used for political fundraising. Newt Gingrich is used for that. I mean, it's just the gift that keeps on giving in terms of whoever's in that speaker role. But no doubt there. But the way the conference was and that quick removal of Kevin McCarthy, I think it does highlight the potential risk moving forward. Absolutely.
All right. Leslie Sanchez, Joel Payne, thank you.